Hi. As part of Leicester's design season, we asked our Create Leicester supporters on their views on a series of themes. Now, these themes explored how their workplace has adjusted and tackled its way through the pandemic and what their predictions are for the future. Here's what they had to say.
I remember we did quite a lot of soul searching about how we were going to organise stuff. That's all the way down from, financial forecasting all the way down to the logistics of where the guys are going to be. Productivity, I think, in our industry, as long as we've got our laptop and our software, which is in the cloud, we can be pretty flexible and fluid in the way that we work. And we didn't really see a dip in productivity. I think the biggest challenge really was around communications. So whereas previously you just turn to the person to your left to say, how do I do this? Or can you give me some insight into this?
Productivity is definitely a big topic at the moment. During the pandemic, we were obviously working full-time, working at home, which had its challenges for productivity. What we found really good was having Slack. That was the first point of call that we adopted, and that allowed us all to communicate really well. We have daily catch-ups now where all the team make sure they post in what they're doing for the day if they have any challenges, which really helped with productivity.
It's something that we've mused upon quite a lot over the last 18 months, productivity. I think there's kind of two aspects that we've found from a studio perspective. I think that the collaborative side of things has been a challenge. So productivity as a group, if you're working either at the early stage of the project and you're trying to get multiple stakeholders in and around a table, or multiple members of your team around a table to discuss ideas, that has been something I think suffered. I think the physical face-to-face has always been a better way to work on those kind of projects. I think a lot of the team that I work with have found that having time to yourself and being able to kind of separate yourself and have that kind of downtime has also proved beneficial. I know personally I've found that to be of benefit, where a couple of days a week it's just heads down and you have very little distractions.
Ordinarily, we'd be affording time for staff to go away to conferences and events and seminars, etc. Those things haven't been happening, so that's been continuing online. But I think in terms of professional development, one of the challenges we've had is around some of the younger staff. I think they have suffered most in terms of not being in the office, not being in the space with their co-workers, not picking up, all of that wisdom and experience, as you'd get in a studio environment. So I think that's been kind of one of the challenges around that.
For me, an extremely important part of the job. In our team, we actually encourage a lot of extra learning, both inside work and outside of work, which really, really helps. And I feel like actual development, personal development, is really important for just your career in general in a company. If a company isn't investing in your personal development, you are quite likely to potentially leave a company, which has happened in the past for me. If a company invests in your personal development, you are much more likely to stay.
Professional development, I think, is much more difficult under COVID restrictions and lockdown restrictions, which is one of the reasons we were keen to go to a hybrid model and come in at least one day a week. We do a lot of training for people, and we've done lots of webinars and things like that during the last 18 months. So all of our training is done in person, but with the hybrid. I think it's really difficult for new starters. They have the hardest time.
Keeping it regular, having calls, not just relying on messages through likes of Slack. I think face to face, through video calls, was instrumental in terms of maintaining that communication. But not only that, it's the kind of regular check-ins with the team. So rather than it's important to have one-to-ones, but it's important also to regroup as a team see how everyone's getting on.
Well, the way that we communicate has completely changed over the last couple of years with everything that's happened with the pandemic. Communicating with either clients or team members has obviously had to change. A lot of things have been done online instead of in presence. I think what's crucial about communication is to always just have those channels open. If you can't grab 5 minutes for a coffee in person, it's about having some form of channel open that everyone is reachable. You're more than happy to jump on a call if you need to, 5 minutes just to discuss something. I think communication is such a key part of design.
For me, communication is one of the trickiest things to get right, pre-pandemic, post-pandemic. Obviously, as a result of the pandemic and hybrid working, remote working, it's put even more of a focus on communication. There's a range of tools that we use, and it's something that we're constantly looking at in terms of the meetings we have, how we communicate, using tools such as Slack, video, etc. To try and make things better. We're bringing in new hardware as well as new platforms to try and smooth that as much as possible. There's no silver bullet, unfortunately, but it's definitely an area that if when you get it right, it makes a big difference.
Using video tools, whether it's Teams, Zoom, Google Meet, whatever they are, we've all been on them, we've all lived on them for the last 18 months. So, and I guess, and what I've found, and I'm sure everyone else has, is it's meant that you've basically been booking in more meetings than you used to, right? So it has been a case of rather than where you had a face-to-face meeting, you'll book perhaps half a day because you were traveling. Now it was a case you were able to squeeze in more. I mean, Teams are great. It's great to have those regular contacts with clients and people, but for some of the particularly new clients or clients you don't have strong relationships with, face-to-face is always a better option. And you learn more in that position just by body language and tone and just actions. You're just able to build more of a rapport.
I think the 9 to 5 is something of the past. I think we've been talking about its core hours, and then you kind of work within that time. I think that's definitely something that's going to happen. I don't think flexible working necessarily means working from home either. It's finding that better balance, work-life balance as well.
We've all had a taste of what flexible working is all about. It has so many benefits to your mental health, your well-being. Working from home, it allows you to, not commute and put that time into yourself. And that makes a really big difference. For sure, at 20i, we have flexible working, and it just really, really works for everyone. It also builds that level of trust as well, which I feel like is really important in a working environment for sure.
The pandemic threw us into a forced period of working from home. As a company, we were always 5 days a week in the studio in person. We had this forced scenario of working from home, but over time we've evolved that into something that makes a lot more sense as a company, something that works and makes sense from all of the team members. I think from talking to people in my team, I think balance has been something that's been a positive of flexible working. Being able to have that time at home and sort of readdressing the sort of work-life balance part of that, but also from reintroducing the team back into the studio, we're finding all the positives of being together in a space and collaborating and kind of riffing off each other's ideas to be of massive benefit. So, I think in the future, I don't know what that holds, but hopefully there'll be a balance between the office space working and working from home.
The biggest thing that everyone's noticed with the pandemic is a re-evaluation of what's important to people in terms of their work-life balance. Obviously, people were forced to work from home for a period of time, and now we're in this transition back into the office. It's very clear to me that the future does not look exactly the same as it did before the pandemic. Equally, personally, I think that the office still plays an important role for certainly for agencies such as ourselves. developing young talent, etc. Because it gives them opportunities that they can't really, that are hard to replicate in the online world.
Obviously, team members historically did have flexible working in the sense they could work from home if they really needed to. If they needed to be home for maintenance appointments or medical appointments, we were always open to that. And now being part of CGI, there is a real push to and they are open to more hybrid working, whether that's part-time or full-time. So, so many members are working from home. So the organisation is implementing that so that it is open to everyone. Going forward, and my concern would be as new members join, if they are remote, whether it's full-time or part-time, whether we can really build those relationships within the team, because face-to-face is a big thing. And so ideally, even though people will be remote, hopefully they can come in a little bit to try and do those, but that's a concern that we need to consider going forward as well.
Project management, working remotely initially was very challenging, just because we were kind of thrown into obviously working from home straight away. So we had to adapt really fast to what technologies we could use to manage the teams. So again, we use Slack. We have channels in there, like the design team, the development team that everyone joins. And we make sure that everyone kind of posts what they're doing. We have a wonderful channel, just a general channel that includes all of our Trustpilot reviews coming in, which is really cool, which is really, really awesome. And project management wise, I use Notion to manage the teams. I use weekly catch-ups with the guys, just to check in on them, obviously work-wise, personal-wise, and that's really helped with the project management of all different items going forward.
Project management, now that's something that's been quite interesting from our perspective. I think we've had a sort of positive improvement from a project management perspective. I think we've had to invest in more tools and keeping things a little bit more linear by streamlining processes, introducing different ways of communicating with clients, with team members about how the project is evolving, introducing more regular touch points than what we might have done previously.
Project management is always been a very important part of the delivery of any of the work that we do, and made even harder over the last 12 months with furlough, etc., and the availability of people. Again, like referring back to productivity and communication, like what we've really been looking at is bringing the right tools and setting up the right processes for people to ensure that we can maintain that kind of smooth project delivery and adapt to the changing circumstances of people that are involved in the project.
Collaboration is really, really key for any project, especially like an in-depth one that we've been working on recently, where we've launched in America, for example. So we found that we wanted to get more teams involved. So that was like a huge project where it involved all aspects like marketing, obviously the UX team, the design team, and the development team. And the key thing for that was, again, just keeping all communication levels open and make sure that everyone was joining in and kind of everyone had their own kind of opinions and sayings. And we definitely brought all of those forward. So no one was afraid to like not speak up, which was really cool. Everyone was like super keen to collaborate and get this launched. There was a real drive and a real passionate and an ambition really for 20i to get this done. And yeah, just like the collaboration level between everyone was awesome.
On the surface, I think has survived very well, and I think in some aspects it probably works better. But I do think the ability to sit in a room and discuss things is still missed, and I do find that those meetings, that's where the magic happens. So I would say that it's not difficult to collaborate virtually, and some organisations have been remote for years. But I think A, you've got to learn how to do it, and then B, if you want to be innovative or inspirational or come up with something a little bit more unusual or something that evolves in the conversation, then that is better done face to face.
Well, I think the biggest concern for us as a design team when we started to work from home was how we were going to collaborate together with projects and how we were going to work with clients collaboratively, particularly in the early stages of projects. We hadn't really invested any time or money into any tools when the pandemic hit. We were very much a in-person agency, and we would, whether it's workshops or collaboration with the team, it would always be in person. I think there was a natural dip. I think we all kind of found that, but I think working through it together and investing in the tools that we've needed, onboarding the team and our clients into this new way of thinking and way of working, I think what started off as a negative has actually been turned into a positive. I think if anything, it actually brings people a little closer together because the tools are now available for people to just grab half an hour, doesn't matter where you are in the country or even if you're on the other side of the world, you can very, very quickly flesh out some ideas in this new digital space, and that can only be a positive.
We were looking for a new designer kind of last winter, doing all the interviews through Zoom, really difficult. Just things like chemistry, body language is kind of missing, or more difficult to gauge, I suppose you'd say. And I think for the new talent, where they've been pulled into the business, I think they found it quite challenging in terms of mentoring and upskilling them is that much more difficult.
Most of the agencies that I know are currently in a situation where they are got more work than they've got resources, and so they're having to go and find people. We've had a bit of a land grab and tried to get as many talented people as we could during the summer, but next year our strategy is going to be to grow our own, so it's very much around running boot camps and training people through schemes like maybe the graduate schemes or the apprentices or Kickstarters, etc.
Lifeblood of the creative industries, do you know what I mean? Bringing those young people in, be they graduates or aspiring artists or whatever they may be. And I think this is one of the biggest challenges in the new world is, if we do move to a full remote working model, then how do we get those people to sit in on meetings, to spend time talking to people outside of just sat at a computer performing a task? And that for me really is where the kind of office environment comes into its own, and I still believe that that's what one thing that will keep it alive more than anything else, because really a lot of businesses don't work if you don't have this new blood coming in, these new ideas to really push things forwards.
Since working from home, it just allowed the team to reflect on kind of what new opportunities that we could maybe bring to the table for 20 Eyes. So, for example, having like channels dedicated on Slack for different teams, getting more people involved, in like the design process as well. So getting people more involved with kind of QA and looking through different things, and everything's open as well. I think that's a really big thing with the whole pandemic and working from home. Like Trello is available to everyone. Everyone can see the project life cycle and check in. And if someone has a new idea, like there's always new opportunities there to kind of dive in. Whether before you're stuck in like different meeting rooms, for example, everything's kind of open now. Definitely opened the game up for a lot more collaboration and new opportunities for anyone.
It's something that's always been on our horizon anyway, and I don't think has would necessarily have been adversely affected by COVID. For me, the interesting thing is the amount of money that the government is pumping in. So there's quite a lot of programs like the Help to Grow, all the digital funding for training to fill the digital skills gap. So for us, it's taking those opportunities of that grant money and actually being in the right place at the right time and being able to provide service. So it's a bit of diversification coming in around training and mentoring, which, I think a year ago we probably wouldn't have be thinking that we would do. Also, I guess some sector stuff, you know, you've got to follow, although you want to specialise in certain sectors, if you were specialising in tourism during COVID, you'd be in trouble. So I think people have had to pivot, or agencies have had to pivot. And so in a way, we're probably following a bit more of where, you know, the need is. So if you're talking to B2B businesses, a lot of them are trying to set up e-commerce websites and need e-commerce marketing. So there's definitely a nose for finding those opportunities, and that's how you get the growth that most of us are looking for.
Over lockdown, a lot of client budgets were cut heavily. Fortunately for us, we had a couple of clients that were already going through massive change programs, so they were still spending with us, which was good. But in the last 2 or 3 months, we've seen more of the previous clients coming back on board. Budgets are being allocated and engagements and opportunities are opening up.
What we're finding is that we're starting to get the seeds of new projects and companies and organisations who are willing to start to invest in digital. Things may have slowed down over the pandemic, but I think there were some really exciting things happening. People were starting to make sense and sort of want to come out the other side fighting and ready to kind of hit the ground running. We've been fortunate here to have had some really nice projects start during the last 6 months. So I think it's going to be an exciting period as the world makes sense of the kind of post-pandemic era, and hopefully going into 2022 there'll be lots of exciting new work coming out.